David Sterling ran the most exclusive wedding venue in Chicago. Historic mansion, breathtaking gardens, 5-star reviews. Except David Sterling didn't own the mansion. He didn't even rent it. He was a con artist who'd been fraudulently booking weddings at a property he had no rights to. And on November 16th, I arrived early to set up my client's ceremony only to discover 5 other weddings were also scheduled for the exact same venue, the exact same day, the exact same time. 6 brides, 6 grooms, 6 wedding parties, 1 venue, 1 massive scam, and 4 hours to stop a disaster that had already been set in motion. This is the story of how I exposed a venue scammer who'd stolen $2.4 million from 40 couples across 5 states, and how I spent the most chaotic day of my career trying to salvage 6 weddings simultaneously after they all discovered they'd been defrauded.
Before we begin today's story, I'd love to know something about you. Tell me, from which city are you watching? Leave your answer in the comments below. Now, take a deep breath, sit back, and let's begin this journey together.
The venue inquiry came through my website in early August, and it seemed too good to be true. Subject, Henderson Mansion, available for your client's November wedding. Dear Miss Sinclair, I saw you're planning a November 16th wedding for Emma Richardson and James Martinez. I own Henderson Mansion, one of Chicago's most exclusive private estates. We typically book 2+ years in advance, but we've had a cancellation for November 16th. Your clients would have exclusive access to our 50-acre property, historic mansion, built 1898, formal gardens, and premium vendor partnerships. Rate $30,000 for full-day rental. If interested, I'd love to schedule a tour. Best regards, David Sterling, owner and director, Sterling Estate Venues. I was immediately suspicious. Here's why. He contacted me, not vice versa. Legitimate venues don't usually cold email wedding planners about cancellations, too good to be true timing. Exclusive venue suddenly available for exact date I needed. High price point, $30K was expensive, but not suspiciously cheap. Scammers often use low prices. Professional presentation, well-written email, proper business name, claims of exclusivity. But I was also intrigued. Emma and James were struggling to find a venue. Everything was booked for their date. If this was legitimate, it could be perfect. I called the number listed. A man answered immediately. Sterling Estate Venues, David speaking. David, this is Maya Sinclair. I received your email about Henderson Mansion availability. Maya, thank you for calling. Yes, we had a last-minute cancellation. Family emergency, very unfortunate. And your client's date became available. I checked your portfolio online and your work is beautiful. I thought Emma and James might be a good fit for our venue. His voice was smooth, professional, warm. Exactly what a legitimate venue owner would sound like. I'd need to see the property before recommending it to my clients. Of course, are you available tomorrow? I'm doing a tour at 10 a.m. for another couple, but I could squeeze you in at 2 p.m. Red flag number 1, though subtle, creating urgency. Another couple touring meant competition. Squeeze you in meant limited availability. Classic sales pressure tactics. But also possibly legitimate. Popular venues do book quickly. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. works. What's the address? 1847 Lakeshore Drive. Historic district. You'll see the mansion from the road. It's the large Victorian estate with iron gates. I'll meet you at the entrance. I Googled the address. Sure enough, there was a stunning Victorian mansion at that location. Photos online showed a pristine historic home with expansive grounds. It looked exactly like the kind of exclusive venue David described. Everything checked out. Maybe I was being paranoid. I arrived at 1847 Lakeshore Drive at 5 p.m. the next day. The property was breathtaking. A 3-story Victorian mansion in perfect condition, surrounded by manicured gardens, overlooking the lake, iron gates with a small guardhouse. Everything screamed exclusive private estate. At exactly 2 p.m., a black BMW pulled up. A man in an expensive suit stepped out. David Sterling was in his mid-40s, handsome in a practiced way, with the kind of polished appearance that came from expensive grooming, tailored suit, perfect haircut, confident handshake. Maya, wonderful to meet you in person. Welcome to Henderson Mansion. He had a remote for the gate, which opened smoothly. We drove up the long driveway to the mansion. The estate has been in the Henderson family for over a century, David explained as we walked. The current owner, Mrs. Eleanor Henderson, is elderly and lives in the cottage on the property. She allows me to manage the venue side while she maintains her privacy. We limit bookings to preserve the estate's character, usually only one wedding per month. Everything about his presentation was perfect, professional, knowledgeable, convincing. We toured the mansion. The interior was stunning, original woodwork, crystal chandeliers, a grand staircase perfect for photos. The gardens were immaculate. The ceremony lawn had views of the lake. We provide tables, chairs, and basic setup as part of the rental, David said. You bring in your own caterer, florist, photographer, but we have preferred vendor partnerships if you need recommendations. Can I meet Mrs. Henderson? I like to verify ownership when booking properties. David's smile didn't falter, but I saw a flash of something, annoyance, calculation, before he responded smoothly. Mrs. Henderson is quite private and doesn't participate in the venue side. She's granted me full authority to manage bookings, but I'm happy to provide our business license, insurance documentation, contracts, whatever you need to feel comfortable. Red flag number 2. Deflecting from direct property owner contact, but also possibly legitimate. Elderly owners often hire managers and want privacy. I'd like to see the business license and insurance. Of course, I'll email everything this afternoon. We finished the tour. The venue was perfect, exactly what Emma and James wanted. The price was high but fair for the quality and exclusivity. If your clients are interested, I'd need a decision quickly, David said as we walked back to the gate. I have 2 other couples interested in November 16th. First couple to sign and provide deposit gets the date. Classic pressure tactic, but again, possibly legitimate for an in-demand venue. I'll discuss with Emma and James tonight and get back to you tomorrow. Perfect, I'll send over the contract and documentation within the hour. True to his word, an email arrived at 3:30 p.m. with professional-looking documents, business license, Sterling Estate Venues LLC, registered Illinois Business Liability Insurance, $2 million coverage, appears legitimate venue contract, standard rental agreement, payment terms, cancellation policy photos, professional, shots of the mansion and grounds, everything looked legitimate. I ran the business license number. It checked out. The insurance policy number was verifiable. The contract language was standard for high-end venues. I called Emma and James that evening. I found a venue. It's perfect. But it's expensive and we need to decide quickly. They toured the next day with David. I came along. They fell in love with the property immediately. This is our dream venue, Emma said, eyes shining. Can we book it? I looked at the contract again, read it carefully. Everything seemed standard. Full-day exclusive rental, $30,000, 50% deposit. Due at signing, $15,000. Remaining 50% due 30 days before wedding refundable deposit, minus 20% admin fee if canceled 90 plus days prior. Non-refundable deposit if canceled less than 90 days prior. David, can I verify the deed to the property? I like to confirm ownership before my clients sign. David maintained his smooth composure. The property is held in a family trust, Henderson Family Trust. For privacy reasons, Mrs. Henderson doesn't allow deed copies to be distributed. But I'm the registered agent for the trust with full authority to enter venue contracts. I can provide the trust documentation if that helps. Red flag number 3, blocking deed verification. But trusts are common for high-value estates. Privacy concerns are real, and David was providing alternative documentation. Emma and James were already convinced. Maya, we love it. Let's book it. Against my better instincts, because everything checked out even though something felt slightly off, I agreed. Okay, let's do it. David smiled. Excellent. I'll need the deposit today to hold the date. The other couples are ready to book, so timing is crucial. Do you accept checks or credit cards? For the deposit, I prefer cashier's check or wire transfer. Reduces processing time and ensures the date is held immediately. You can pay the final balance by check if you prefer. Red flag number 4, cash payment preference. But many high-end vendors prefer immediate payment methods, and he was allowing checks for final balance. Emma and James went to the bank that afternoon and got a cashier's check for $15,000. They delivered it to David's office, A small professional office in downtown Chicago. I verified the address, it was legitimate. David provided a receipt, a signed contract, and a welcome packet with vendor recommendations and timeline information. Congratulations, David said warmly, shaking their hands. November 16th is going to be beautiful. I'll be your point of contact for all venue-related questions leading up to the wedding. Everything seemed perfect, except it wasn't. Over the next 3 months, planning Emma and James's wedding proceeded normally. We communicated with David regularly. September, confirmed ceremony and reception layouts. October, finalized vendor access times and setup schedule. Early November, paid remaining $15,000 balance. David was responsive, professional, helpful. He answered questions promptly, provided detailed property information, coordinated with our vendors for delivery and setup access. He seemed like the perfect venue manager, but small things bothered me. Nothing I could articulate clearly, just feelings. Observation. 1. David always insisted on being present for vendor visits. Can our florist visit the property to take measurements? I'd ask. Of course, I'll need to be there to let them in. The property is gated and we maintain security. When works for them, I'll coordinate. Reasonable. Security makes sense for high-end private estate, but also controlling, making sure no one accessed the property without his supervision. Observation 2. We never saw Mrs. Henderson or any other staff. Every time we visited for planning meetings, David met us at the gate, gave us tours, answered questions, but the mansion itself was always empty. No staff, no owner, no evidence anyone actually lived there. Where is Mrs. Henderson? I asked during one October visit. She's likely in her cottage, David said, gesturing vaguely toward the back of the property. She values her privacy. I handle all venue operations so she doesn't have to interact with clients. Observation 3. David's office was minimalist. When I dropped off a final payment in early November, I'd noticed David's office was barely furnished. Desk, computer, phone, no photos, no personal touches, no business memorabilia. It looked temporary, like someone could pack up and disappear in 10 minutes. Observation 4. Online presence was thin. Sterling Estate Venues had a professional website with beautiful photos of Henderson Mansion. But the website had been created only 8 months ago. I checked the domain registration. Social media accounts existed, but had minimal history. Mostly just photos of the mansion, generic wedding content, few actual client reviews. For a venue that claimed to have been operating for years, the digital footprint was surprisingly light. But I rationalized each concern. New website doesn't mean scam. Maybe they just redesigned minimal reviews could mean exclusive clientele who value privacy. Empty office could mean David works remotely and just rents office space for meetings. Never seeing the owner isn't unusual. Managers exist for a reason. By mid-November, with 1 week until the wedding, I'd convinced myself my suspicions were paranoia. Emma and James were excited. Vendors were confirmed. Everything was on track. And then November 16th arrived. 6 hours until ceremony. 4 hours until I discovered the scam. 2 hours until chaos erupts. I arrived at Henderson Mansion at 8 a.m., 4 hours before the ceremony to oversee vendor setup. Emma and James's wedding was scheduled for noon. Cocktail hour at 1 p.m., reception at 2 p.m., evening send-off at 6 p.m., full-day exclusive rental. I pulled up to the gate at 1847 Lakeshore Drive and pressed the call box button to alert David we'd arrived. No answer. I tried again. Still no answer. Strange. David knew we were coming. I'd confirmed with him yesterday. I called his cell phone, straight to voicemail. Very strange. While I was trying to figure out how to contact David, another vehicle pulled up behind me. A florist van from Bella Flora Designs, but not the florist Emma had hired. The driver rolled down her window. Excuse me, are you here for the Thompson wedding? I blinked. No, the Richardson-Martinez wedding. Who's Thompson? Sophie Thompson is getting married here today. 2 p.m. ceremony. I'm delivering flowers. My stomach dropped. There must be a mistake. The venue is exclusively rented to Emma Richardson and James Martinez for the full day. Ceremony at noon. The florist looked confused. I have a confirmed order for Sophie Thompson, Henderson Mansion, November 16th, 2 p.m. ceremony. Here's my invoice. She showed me her phone. The invoice clearly listed Henderson Mansion, 1847, Lakeshore Drive, November 16th, 2 p.m. Let me call my client, I said, feeling sick. Before I could dial, 2 more vehicles arrived. A catering truck from Gourmet Events and a photographer's SUV. I recognized neither vendor. Are you at the Richardson wedding? I asked. No, the caterer said. We're here for the Chen wedding. 2 p.m. reception. Johnson wedding, the photographer added. 1 p.m. ceremony. Ice shot through my veins. 4 different weddings, all scheduled at Henderson Mansion, all on November 16th, all at overlapping times. This couldn't be coincidence. Everyone stay here, I said, pulling up my phone. I need to call the venue owner. I tried David's cell again, voicemail. I tried the office number. Disconnected. I tried the email address. Bounced back as undeliverable. Panic set in. I called Emma. Emma, I'm at the venue. There's a problem. Don't leave your hotel yet. What kind of problem? I think there are other weddings booked today. Multiple other weddings. I'm trying to sort it out. What? David said we had exclusive rental? I know, something's wrong. Stay at the hotel. I'll call you back. While I was on the phone with Emma, 3 more vehicles arrived. More florists, more caterers, more photographers, all for different weddings, all scheduled for November 16th. All at the same venue. How many weddings are happening today? I asked a growing crowd of confused vendors. We compared notes. Between all of us, we counted. Wedding 1. Emma Richardson and James Martinez, noon ceremony, my clients. Wedding 2, Sophie Thompson and David Park, 2 p.m. ceremony. Wedding 3, Lisa Chen and Mark Rivera, 2 p.m. reception. Wedding 4, Ashley Johnson and Robert Williams, 1 p.m. ceremony. Wedding 5, Maria Garcia, Ria, and Tom Anderson, 3 p.m. ceremony. Wedding 6, Jennifer Brown and Chris Taylor, 2 p.m. ceremony. 6 weddings, all scheduled for the same venue, all on the same day, all with overlapping times. All of us had contracts with David Sterling, Sterling Estate Venues. All of us had paid deposits totaling $15,000, $30,000. This is a scam, I said out loud, and the words felt like acid. David Sterling scammed all of us. One of the other wedding planners, a woman named Patricia, who represented the Chen wedding, looked horrified. That's impossible. We verified everything. Business license, insurance, contracts. So did I. And now David's phone is off and his office number is disconnected. The crowd of vendors stood in shocked silence, all of us realizing the same thing. Our clients, 6 couples, who'd been planning dream weddings for months, who'd paid tens of thousands of dollars, who were currently getting ready to get married, were about to arrive to discover there was no wedding, no venue, no exclusive rental, just a scam. And it was 9 a.m. Ceremony started in 3 hours. We need to call our clients, I said, right now before they leave their hotels. 3 hours until first ceremony, 30 minutes until brides start arriving. Time to stop this, running out. I called Emma first, hands shaking, voice trying to stay calm. Emma, I need you to listen carefully. There's been a major problem with the venue. What kind of problem? Maya, we're getting ready. Hair and makeup are almost done. We're supposed to leave for the venue in an hour. The venue was scammed. David Sterling doesn't actually own Henderson Mansion. He's been fraudulently renting it. There are 6 weddings scheduled today, including yours. He took your deposit and disappeared. Silence on the other end, then what? David Sterling is a con artist. He scammed you and 5 other couples. There's no wedding at Henderson Mansion today. I'm so sorry, Emma. I verified everything I could, but he was sophisticated. He had fake documents, fake contracts, everything looked legitimate. This isn't real. This is a joke. Tell me this is a joke, Maya. I wish it were, but it's not. David is gone. His phone is off. His office is closed. And there are 5 other wedding parties who also paid deposits and also thought they had exclusive rental. Emma started crying. In the background, I heard James asking what was wrong. We paid $30,000, Emma said. That's our entire wedding budget, our parents' contributions, our savings, everything, and there's no wedding? I'm going to fix this, I said, though I had no idea how. Don't come to the venue. Stay at your hotel. Give me 2 hours. I'm going to find you another solution. 2 hours? Maya, the wedding is in 3 hours. Where are we going to find a venue in 3 hours? I don't know yet, but I'm going to try. Just please don't come here. If you show up, there's nothing here but 5 other devastated couples and a property owner who has no idea her estate has been illegally rented out for months. I hung up and immediately started calling my network. Every venue I'd ever worked with, every colleague, anyone who might have emergency availability. While I was frantically making calls, the other wedding planners were doing the same. 6 of us standing in the driveway of a mansion we couldn't access, all desperately trying to salvage 6 simultaneous disasters. Patricia, Chen wedding planner, hung up from a call looking devastated. My couple already left their hotel. They'll be here in 30 minutes. Mine too, said another planner, representing the Johnson wedding. The bride is in the limo, hair and makeup done, dress on. She thinks she's going to her dream wedding, and instead, she didn't finish. She didn't have to. At 9:15 a.m., an elderly woman emerged from a small cottage at the back of the property, walking slowly toward the crowd at her gate. Mrs. Eleanor Henderson, the actual property owner. "Excuse me," she called out, voice shaky with age and confusion. "What's going on? Why are all these people at my gate?" I walked toward her carefully. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm Maya Sinclair. I'm a wedding planner. I need to ask you, do you rent your mansion for weddings?" She looked baffled. "Rent my mansion? No, dear. This is my private home. I've lived here for 50 years. Why would I rent it? Has anyone named David Sterling approached you about using your property for events?" "David who? I don't know anyone by that name." My worst fear confirmed. David Sterling had been fraudulently renting a property he had no connection to. He'd created an entire fake venue business using someone else's estate. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but someone has been renting your property for weddings without your permission. There are 6 couples who paid money to rent your mansion for weddings today. They're arriving soon, expecting to get married here." Mrs. Henderson looked horrified. "But I never gave permission. Who would do such a thing?" "A scammer named David Sterling. He created fake contracts and took deposits from multiple couples. Do you know how he got access to your property?" I don't know. The gates are locked. I have security. How could someone... Do you ever leave the property? Are there times when the mansion is empty?" "Well, yes. I visit my daughter in Florida for a few weeks each year. And I spend weekends at my Lake Geneva house sometimes, but the property is always locked. That's when he did it. David showed prospective clients the property when you weren't home, made it look like he had permission, took photos, created a fake business, and scammed dozens of couples." Mrs. Henderson was crying now. "Those poor couples, their wedding days. I'm so sorry. I had no idea." At 9:30 a.m., the first victims arrived. 2.5 hours until first scheduled ceremony, 90 minutes until complete chaos, 60 minutes to find solutions for 6 weddings. The first couple to arrive was Sophie Thompson and David Park, wedding number 2, scheduled for 2 p.m. Sophie was in her wedding dress, hair and makeup perfect, bouquet in hand, smiling as she stepped out of the limo. "We're here," she called out cheerfully. And then she saw the crowd, 6 wedding planners, dozens of vendors, Mrs. Henderson crying, the locked gates. Her smile faded. "What's going on?" I walked toward her slowly. "Sophie, I'm Maya Sinclair. I'm a wedding planner. I need to tell you something very difficult." "Where's David Sterling? He's supposed to meet us here." "David Sterling is a scammer. He doesn't own this property. He fraudulently rented it to you and 5 other couples. Your wedding can't happen here?" Sophie stared at me like I'd spoken gibberish. "That's impossible. We have a contract. We paid $28,000. We've verified everything." Her planner, standing nearby, had tears streaming down her face. "It's true, Sophie. I've been on the phone with police. David Sterling scammed multiple couples. He's gone. The venue was never real." Sophie's legs gave out. Her groom caught her as she collapsed, wedding dress pooling on the driveway. "No," she whispered. "No, this can't be happening. Our wedding day, our families are coming. The ceremony is in 4 hours. We paid everything. We don't have money for another venue. This can't be real." While Sophie was processing, 2 more couples arrived simultaneously. The Johnsons, wedding number 4, and the Garcias, wedding number 5, both brides in wedding dresses, both grooms in tuxedos, both wedding parties excited and happy, until they saw Sophie sobbing on the ground and realized something was catastrophically wrong. "What's happening?" Ashley Johnson asked, voice rising with panic. "Is the venue closed?" Maria Garcia looked confused. 6 wedding planners, 12 emotional couples, and 1 elderly property owner who just discovered her estate had been used for fraud, all standing in the driveway of Henderson Mansion at 10 a.m. on what should have been 6 beautiful wedding days. I made a decision. "Everyone listen to me." I raised my voice to get attention. "I know this is devastating. I know you're in shock. But we have 2 hours before ceremonies start. If we work together, all 6 weddings, all the planners, all the vendors, we might be able to salvage something. Not the day you planned, but something." "Salvage how?" James Martinez, my client, had just arrived with Emma. Both looked shell-shocked. "We have no venue, no money left. Everything we saved went to the deposit. We can't afford another venue." "I'm calling in every favor I have," I said. "Every venue I've worked with, every colleague, every vendor who owes me. We're going to find spaces. They might not be Henderson Mansion, but we're going to try." Mrs. Henderson stepped forward. "Please," she said to the group. "I'm so sorry this happened. I had no idea someone was using my property illegally, but I want to help. I may not host events, but I have resources, connections. Let me make some calls." Over the next hour, 10 to 11 a.m., while brides sat in their wedding dress trying not to cry and grooms made frantic calls to family members arriving for ceremonies, the wedding planners went into crisis mode. We formed a command center in the Henderson Mansion driveway. 6 planners, 1 mission, salvage 6 weddings in under 2 hours, 2 hours until first ceremony, 1 hour until guests start arriving, 30 minutes until we need final decisions. I called every venue in my network. "Hi, this is Maya Sinclair. I have an emergency. A couple's venue fell through and they're getting married in 2 hours. Do you have any availability? I know it's last minute. I know it's asking the impossible, but these are victims of fraud," and most said no, booked, no availability, impossible timeline, but a few said maybe. "The lakefront pavilion can take 1 wedding, outdoor space, minimal setup, noon ceremony if they can get here by 11:30. 1 venue secured. Patricia secured a restaurant with a private event space. The garden room at Lucia's. They can do ceremony and reception. 2 p.m. 2 venues. Another planner found a park with a gazebo. Grant Park ceremony site, public but pretty. 1 p.m. if they file emergency permit. 3 venues. Mrs. Henderson made calls to her wealthy friends. 1 had a lakefront estate. My friend Margaret has a home in Winnetka. She says she can host a small ceremony. 3 p.m. 4 venues. We were scrambling, piecing together solutions, not the elegant mansion weddings couples had paid for, but something. At 10:45 a.m., I made an executive decision. "Emma James, I got you lakefront pavilion, noon ceremony. It's beautiful, outdoor, free. Not Henderson Mansion, but we'll take it," Emma said immediately. "Anything. Just please let us get married today." Sophie, David, the garden room at Lucia's, 2 p.m., they're comping the space because of the situation. You'd only pay for food and drinks. Sophie was still crying, but nodded. "Yes, thank you." We assigned venues, wedding 1, Emma and James, lakefront pavilion, noon wedding 2, Sophie and David, garden room at Lucia's, 2 p.m. wedding 3, Lisa and Mark, Grant Park gazebo, 1 p.m. wedding 4, Ashley and Robert, Margaret's estate, Winnetka, 3 p.m. wedding 5, Maria and Tom. Still searching. Wedding 6, Jennifer and Chris. Still searching. 2 couples still had nowhere to go. Time was running out. At 11 a.m., a miracle happened. A colleague called me back. "Maya, I just spoke to the Drake Hotel. They had a wedding cancellation for today. Different couple, different situation. They have their grand ballroom available. They'll give it to one of your couples at cost. 2 p.m. ceremony." "Yes, thank you." 5 venues secured. We were down to 1 couple without a solution. Jennifer Brown and Chris Taylor, wedding 36. Jennifer was the most devastated. "We don't have family here. We eloped to Chicago specifically for this venue. We paid our entire savings. We have nowhere else to go. At 11:15 a.m., Mrs. Henderson made a decision that surprised everyone. Jennifer and Chris can get married here. Everyone turned to stare at her. You said you don't host events, I said carefully. I don't, but these young people are victims of fraud committed on my property. I'm partly responsible. Someone used my estate to deceive them. The least I can do is let them use my garden for their ceremony. Jennifer burst into tears. Really? You'd let us get married here? Yes, dear, just a ceremony. I can't handle a reception, but you can have your ceremony in my garden. 2 p.m., I'll have my groundskeeper set up chairs. 6 venues secured. Against all odds, with less than 2 hours' notice, we'd found spaces for 6 weddings. Not the weddings couples had planned, not the mansion they'd paid for, but something. 45 minutes until first ceremony, 30 minutes until guests arrive, 15 minutes to transform spaces. The next 45 minutes were the most chaotic of my career. 6 wedding planners, 6 venues, 6 simultaneous setups happening across Chicago. I sent vendors to Lakefront Pavilion. Emma's ceremony is in 45 minutes. Set up minimal, arch, chairs, that's it. We don't have time for elaborate. Florists, rental companies, and decorators sprinted to execute. Not the designs they'd planned, emergency versions, fast and functional. At 11:30 a.m., Emma and James arrived at Lakefront Pavilion. The space was beautiful, outdoor pavilion overlooking Lake Michigan. Not Henderson Mansion, but stunning in its own way. It's perfect, Emma said, crying. It's not what we planned, but it's perfect. Guests were arriving, confused about the location change, but adjusting. Emma's mother was furious. We paid $30,000 for a historic mansion and we're getting a park pavilion. But Emma shut that down. Mom, we were scammed. The venue was never real. Maya found us this space with 1 hour notice. We're getting married today, that's what matters. At noon exactly, Emma walked down a makeshift aisle to James. No grand mansion staircase, no crystal chandeliers. Just Lake Michigan, blue sky, and the man she loved. I take you, James, to be my husband, in chaos and in peace, in disaster and in triumph. When everything goes wrong and when everything goes right, I choose you. The ceremony was beautiful, raw, emotional in a way that perfectly planned weddings sometimes aren't. While Emma and James were getting married at Lakefront Pavilion, 5 of the ceremonies were happening across Chicago. 1 p.m., Grant Park, Ashley and Robert married under a gazebo with a hastily filed emergency permit. 2 p.m. Henderson Mansion Garden, Jennifer and Chris married in Mrs. Henderson's private garden, the only couple who got anything close to what they'd paid for. 2 p.m., garden room at Lucia's. Sophie and David married in a restaurant's private space. 2 p.m., the Drake Hotel. Lisa and Mark married in a grand ballroom they'd never seen before. 3 p.m., Winnetka Estate. Maria and Tom married at a stranger's lakefront home. 6 weddings, 6 different venues, all on the same day, all for couples who'd been scammed by the same con artist. While ceremonies were happening, I was on the phone with police. This is Maya Sinclair. I need to report a fraud case. Multiple victims. A man named David Sterling has been scamming couples by fraudulently renting a property he doesn't own. The detective who took my call, Detective Marcus Rivera, no relation to one of the grooms, was immediately interested. How many victims? At least 6 couples today, all scheduled for the same venue on the same day. But I think there are more. David's been operating for months, maybe longer. Do you have documentation? I have contracts, receipts, email correspondence, everything. All 6 couples have similar evidence. I'm sending officers to take statements. Don't let anyone leave. We need to interview all the victims. By 4 p.m., police had set up a command center at Henderson Mansion with Mrs. Henderson's permission. 6 couples gave statements, 6 wedding planners provided evidence. The scope of the fraud was becoming clear. David Sterling's fake name, Operation, created Sterling Estate Venues as a fake company, fraudulently rented Henderson Mansion and possibly other properties, used professional-looking fake documents, business license, insurance, contracts, collected deposits of $15,000, $30,000 per couple, Booked multiple weddings for same venue, same day to maximize profit before disappearing. Disconnected all contact methods on wedding day, fled with approximately $180,000 from today's 6 couples alone. Detective Rivera pulled me aside. This is bigger than today. I need you to think, did David Sterling mention other venues, other properties, other dates? I thought back through our conversations. He said he managed multiple estates. Sterling estate venues, plural. He might be running this scam at other properties. We need to find out where else he's operating, fast, before more couples get scammed. Detective Rivera's team worked quickly. By 6 p.m., they'd made significant discoveries. Finding number 1, David Sterling is not his real name. The business license we'd all verified, filed under a stolen identity. The real David Sterling was an elderly man in Wisconsin who had no idea his identity had been used for fraud. Finding number 2, the website was elaborate but new. Sterling Estate Venue's website had been created 8 months ago. Professional photos, testimonials, vendor partnerships, all fake. The photos were of Henderson Mansion, taken during scouting visits when Mrs. Henderson was away. The testimonials were fabricated. The vendor partnerships didn't exist. Finding number 3, the office was a virtual rental. David's office in downtown Chicago was a short-term executive suite rental. Paid month to month with cash, no lease, no paper trail. He could walk away anytime. Finding number 4, this wasn't his first time. Detective Rivera ran searches for similar scams, found patterns, Portland, Oregon, 2022, Cascade Estate venues, scammed 8 couples, same MO, fake venue rental company, multiple, couples booked same day, owner disappeared with deposits, never caught. Denver, Colorado, 2021, Mountain View Estate venues scammed 5 couples, same pattern, never caught. Austin, Texas, 2020, Hill Country Estate venues scammed 7 couples, same scam, never caught. Phoenix, Arizona, 2019. Desert Estate venues scammed 6 couples, same operation, never caught. He's been doing this for at least 5 years, Detective Rivera said, rotating cities, changing company names, but the pattern is identical. He finds a beautiful private estate, pretends to own or manage it, books multiple weddings for the same day, collects deposits, and disappears before anyone realizes. By the time couples discover the scam, he's already moved to the next city. How much has he stolen total? Conservative estimate, over $2 million, possibly closer to $3 million, from 40 to 50 couples across 5 states. The 6 couples who'd gotten married today, despite the chaos, were now learning they were part of a much larger criminal enterprise, not just unlucky victims of a one-time scam, part of a years-long pattern of systematic fraud. At 7 p.m., all 6 couples, now married, having survived the most chaotic wedding day imaginable, gathered at Henderson Mansion at Detective Rivera's request. Emma and James, Sophie and David, Lisa and Mark, Ashley and Robert, Maria and Tom, Jennifer and Chris, 6 couples who should have been at their receptions. Instead, they were at a police command center. I've gathered you here because you're all victims of the same crime, Detective Rivera said. The man you knew as David Sterling is a professional con artist who's been running this scam for years. He's stolen over $2 million from couples across 5 states. Your victims, 33 through 38. 38? Emma looked sick. There are 38 couples before us who went through this. At least, we're still investigating. Did any of them get their money back? James asked. No, David, whatever his real name is, disappears completely between scams. New city, new identity, new operation. We've never caught him. So we're just out 30,000? Sophie's voice was rising. We have no recourse? No way to get our deposits back? We're pursuing criminal charges. If we catch him, there will be restitution as part of sentencing. But I need to be honest. Recovering funds in fraud cases is difficult. Even if we catch him, the money is likely spent or hidden. The room was silent, the reality sinking in. These couples had not only had their wedding days disrupted, they'd lost their entire wedding budgets. Money that had taken years to save, money from parents' retirement accounts, money that was just gone. But we did get married, Jennifer said quietly. That's something. It's not the day we planned, not the venue we paid for. But we're married. He didn't take that from us. It was small comfort. but it was something. While police were investigating, something else was happening online. Emma had posted on Instagram, "Despite venue fraud and chaos, we got married today. Thank you to everyone who helped salvage our day. Richardson Martinez wedding. Wedding day miracle." Sophie saw the post, commented, "Wait, you were scammed by David Sterling too? Henderson Mansion, Thompson Parker wedding." Lisa saw both comments. "OMG, us too. We thought we were the only ones. Question Rivera wedding." Within hours, all 6 couples had connected on social media, sharing stories, comparing evidence, realizing they'd all been scammed by the same person on the same day. And then other people started commenting. "This happened to us in Portland last year. Cascade Estate venues, same scam." Denver 2021, Mountain View Estate venues lost $25K. Austin 2020, Hill Country Estate venues. We're still paying off the debt from that fraud. The victims started finding each other, creating a private Facebook group, sharing documentation, building a database of everyone who'd been scammed. By midnight on November 16th, they had identified 42 victim couples across 5 states over 5 years. The social media investigation was more effective than police investigation had been because the victims were comparing notes, finding patterns, building evidence, and they were angry. The next morning, Detective Rivera called me. We found him. David Sterling. His real name is Marcus Webb, 46 years old. History of fraud and identity theft. Multiple aliases. He was at O'Hare Airport trying to board a flight to the Bahamas when airport security flagged him on a warrant we'd issued overnight. You caught him already. Your victim's social media investigation helped. They found previous victims who provided details about his patterns. Always flies out the evening of the scam. Always goes to a country with no extradition treaty. We knew he'd be at the airport. We were waiting for him. What happens now? He's being charged with wire fraud, federal crime since he operated across state lines, identity theft, theft by deception, and fraud. 42 counts total, 1 for each identified victim. He's looking at 20-30 years federal prison. Will the victims get their money back? We're tracing his assets. He had $340,000 in cash in his luggage, money from recent scams. That will be seized and divided among victims as restitution. But it won't cover everything. Most of the $2.4 million is gone, spent on his lifestyle, gambling, general living expenses. So the victims would get partial restitution, maybe $8,000, $10,000 each. Not the $15,000, $30,000 they'd lost, but something. Marcus Webb, the real name of David Sterling, was arrested on November 17th, held without bail as a flight risk. The 6 couples from Chicago, plus the 36 other couples who'd been scammed in previous years, prepared to testify at his trial. In Part 3, I'll tell you about Marcus Webb's trial and his defense strategy, claiming he was helping couples by providing affordable venues, the devastating victim impact statements from 42 couples, how the wedding industry responded to close the loopholes he exploited, the sentencing and where Marcus is now the victim's recovery, and which couple survived the financial devastation. In Part 4, I'll cover where everyone is now, 3 years later, whether the 6 Chicago couples stayed married after such a traumatic wedding day, the restitution process and how much money victims recovered, changes to venue verification systems industry-wide, what this case taught me about trust, verification, and the vulnerabilities in wedding planning, the unexpected positive outcome, how the 6 couples became lifelong friends through shared trauma. Because Marcus Webb didn't just steal money, he stole wedding days. He stole the joy and celebration that couples had been planning for years. He stole trust in an industry built on creating beautiful moments, but he didn't steal everything. 6 couples still got married on November 16th, despite chaos, despite discovering they'd been scammed, despite having to salvage their weddings in hours instead of months. Love survived fraud. That's what matters.
Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming tales. And while you're at it, drop a like and let us know what you think in the comments below. Now, let's get back to it.
72 hours until verdict, 48 hours until sentencing, 24 hours until 42 victims faced their attacker, 12 hours until justice. Marcus Webb's trial began on June 12th, 7 months after his arrest at O'Hare Airport. The charges were extensive: 42 counts of wire fraud, 1 per victim couple, 5 counts of identity theft for fake business identities across 5 states, 42 counts of theft by deception, computer fraud for fake websites and digital deception. Total potential sentence: 240 plus years in federal prison. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. They had contracts from 42 couples showing identical scam pattern, bank records showing $2.4 million in deposits, property records proving Marcus never owned or rented any venues, digital forensics from fake websites and email accounts, testimony from actual property owners like Mrs. Henderson, who never authorized rentals, airport arrest with $340,000 cash in luggage, previous arrest warrants from other states under different aliases. The defense strategy was audacious. Marcus claimed he was actually helping couples access exclusive venues. His attorney, Richard Feldman, expensive defense lawyer known for creative strategies, argued in opening statements, Marcus Webb is not a criminal. He's an innovator who saw a gap in the wedding industry. Couples desperate for beautiful venues but unable to afford them. Marcus provided access to estates that would otherwise be unavailable. Yes, his methods were unconventional. Yes, there were communication breakdowns, but intent matters. Marcus never intended to defraud anyone. He was trying to create opportunities. It was absurd, but it was all they had. The pattern evidence, days 1 to 3. The prosecution started by establishing Marcus's pattern across 5 states. They called venue owners from each location. Portland, 2022. Someone calling himself Robert Chase rented out my family's estate for weddings without my knowledge or permission. I discovered it when 8 couples showed up on the same day demanding access to a property I'd never agreed to rent. Denver, 2021. A man named James Harrison created a fake venue company using photos of my mountain property. He collected deposits from 5 couples. I only learned about it when police contacted me after the couples complained. Austin, 2020. I own a hill country ranch. I don't rent it for events. But David Mitchell advertised it online as a wedding venue and collected money from 7 couples who thought they were renting my property. Phoenix, 2019. My desert estate was used by Thomas Sterling for a venue scam. 6 couples paid deposits. I never authorized any of it. Chicago, 2024. Mrs. Eleanor Henderson testified, Marcus Webb, under the name Davis Sterling, used my private mansion for venue fraud. I'm 72 years old. This is my family home. The idea that someone would exploit my property, that couples planned their weddings here without my knowledge, is devastating. The pattern was undeniable. 5 cities, 5 fake names, 5 fake venue companies. Same scam every time. The digital evidence, days, 4-5, FBI digital forensics expert testified about Marcus's online operation. Marcus Webb created 5 separate fake venue websites over 5 years. Each site had professional photography, fake testimonials, fabricated vendor partnerships. He registered business licenses using stolen identities. He created email accounts, phone numbers, virtual office addresses, and entire fake business infrastructure that appeared legitimate. How sophisticated was the operation? Very. Most couples did basic verification, checked business licenses, looked at websites, read reviews. Everything checked out because Marcus had created layers of false documentation. He even had fake insurance policies. Unless you physically went to the county recorder's office to verify property ownership, which most people don't do, you wouldn't catch the fraud. The financial forensics. Days 6-7. The FBI Financial Crimes Unit traced Marcus's money. Over 5 years, Marcus Webb collected approximately $2.4 million in venue deposits. He spent it on luxury lifestyle, expensive hotels, international travel, gambling, designer clothes. When arrested, he had $340,000 cash in his luggage and was fleeing to the Bahamas. Did any of the money go toward legitimate business expenses? Minimal. He paid for website hosting and virtual office rentals, but 95% of the money was personal spending. This wasn't a business. It was theft with business camouflage. My testimony. Day 8. I took the stand on day 8 to describe the Chicago scam from a wedding planner's perspective. Ms. Sinclair, you're an experienced wedding planner. Did anything about David Sterling, Marcus Webb raise red flags initially? Small things. He insisted on cash deposits, deflected when I asked to verify property ownership, never allowed property visits without him present. His office was minimalist, like someone ready to disappear quickly, but each red flag individually seemed explainable. It was only in aggregate that the pattern was obvious. What happened on November 16th? I arrived at Henderson Mansion at 8 a.m. to set up for my client's noon ceremony. Within minutes, I realized 5 other weddings were also scheduled for the same venue at overlapping times. 6 couples, 1 property, all scammed. Marcus had taken their deposit and disappeared. What was the impact on the couples? Devastating. These couples had spent months planning, paid their entire wedding budgets, were minutes away from their ceremonies when they discovered there was no venue. We scrambled to find emergency locations. All 6 couples did get married that day, but not in the way they'd planned or paid for. Did the couples recover their deposits? No, the money was gone. Some will receive partial restitution from the $340,000 seized at Marcus's arrest, maybe $8,000 each, but most lost $15,000 to $30,000 permanently. The defense attorney cross-examined. Ms. Sinclair, you said you noticed red flags but chose to ignore them. Doesn't that make you partly responsible for your client's losses? I kept my voice steady. I verified everything I could. Business license, insurance, contracts, everything appeared legitimate. Marcus Webb is a sophisticated con artist who created layers of false documentation specifically designed to pass standard verification. I didn't ignore red flags. I investigated them and found fake evidence that appeared to confirm legitimacy. But you still recommended the venue to your clients. Because every verification step I took said it was real. Marcus exploited the trust inherent in the wedding industry. Vendors and planners assume people are operating legitimately unless proven otherwise. Marcus weaponized that trust. Day 9. The prosecution called victim couples to testify. They couldn't call all 42. That would take weeks. So they selected representatives from each scam. Emma and James, Chicago 2024. Emma testified first, voice shaking but strong. We saved for 2 years for our wedding, $30,000. It was our entire budget. When David Sterling, Marcus Webb, showed us Henderson Mansion, it was perfect, exactly what we dreamed of. We verified his business license, checked his website. Everything seemed legitimate. We paid our deposit thinking we were hiring a professional venue. What happened on your wedding day? I was getting ready at our hotel, excited, happy. And then Maya called saying the venue was a scam, that 5 other weddings were scheduled the same time, that David had stolen our money and disappeared. I thought it was a joke, a terrible prank. But it was real. Our wedding, the day we'd been planning for months, didn't exist. Did you get married? Yes. Maya found us an emergency venue with 1 hour notice. We got married at a lakefront pavilion instead of the historic mansion we'd paid for. It was beautiful, but she started crying. It wasn't what we'd planned, wasn't what we'd dreamed of, wasn't what we'd paid for, and we lost $30,000 we'll never get back. How has this affected you financially? We'd planned to use leftover wedding money as a down payment on a house. Now we have no house fund. We're starting our marriage in debt instead of building a future. Marcus Webb didn't just steal our wedding day, he stole our financial security. James testified next. I'm a high school teacher. Emma's a nurse. We don't make huge salaries. That $30,000 was our parents' contributions plus everything we'd saved. It represented years of sacrifice, and Marcus took it in exchange for nothing, for lies, for a wedding venue that never existed. Melissa and Tom, Portland 2022. Melissa testified via video link from Oregon. Robert Chase, which is what Marcus called himself in Portland, scammed us out of $25,000. We thought we were renting Cascade Estate for our wedding. On our wedding day, 8 couples showed up to the same venue at the same time. Chaos, crying, angry property owners. We didn't get married that day. We couldn't afford another venue. We postponed our wedding 6 months while we saved again. Marcus didn't just steal money, he stole our wedding day entirely. Sarah and Kevin, Denver, 2021. James Harrison scammed us. That's the name Marcus used in Denver. We lost $28,000. We got married at a friend's backyard instead of the mountain estate we'd paid for. 3 years later, we're still paying off debt from that fraud. We had to cancel our honeymoon, delay buying a house, postpone having children. Marcus Webb's fraud affected the entire trajectory of our marriage. The pattern continues, victim after victim testified. Different states, different dates, different fake names. But identical stories, beautiful venue they couldn't afford. Charismatic owner who seemed legitimate. Deposits paid with excitement and trust. Wedding day, discovery of fraud. Scrambling for emergency solutions. Lost money never recovered. Years of financial impact. By the end of day 12, the jury had heard from 12 couples representing the 42 victims. The emotional devastation was palpable. Marcus Webb's testimony. Day 15. Against his attorney's advice, Marcus insisted on testifying. He took the stand wearing an expensive suit provided by his lawyer. All his personal assets had been seized. He looked polished, professional, remorseful. Mr. Webb, tell the jury why you created these venue rental businesses. I saw a need in the wedding industry, couples desperate for beautiful venues but unable to afford them. Exclusive estates charging $50,000, $75,000 for rentals. I thought, what if I could provide access to these properties at more affordable rates? Were you trying to defraud couples? No, never. I was trying to help them. Yes, my methods were unconventional. I didn't own the properties. I was more of a facilitator, connecting couples with venues. But my intent was always to provide value. It was a lie so audacious that several jury members visibly rolled their eyes. The prosecutor's cross-examination was brutal. Mr. Webb, you claim you were helping couples, but you collected deposits and provided nothing in return. How is that helping? There were operational challenges I didn't anticipate. You booked 6 weddings at the same venue on the same day. That's not an operational challenge. That's intentional fraud. I made mistakes in scheduling. You've run this scam in 5 states under 5 different names: Portland, Denver, Austin, Phoenix, Chicago. That's not mistakes. That's a pattern of deliberate criminal behavior. I was trying different business models. You were arrested at the airport with $340,000 in cash fleeing to the Bahamas. If you were a legitimate businessman, why were you running? Marcus had no good answer. I panicked. I knew couples were unhappy, and I was afraid you'd be caught for fraud. Afraid you'd finally face consequences for stealing from dozens of couples over 5 years. Afraid your scam was over. I never intended to hurt anyone, but you did hurt them. 42 couples, $2.4 million stolen, wedding days destroyed, financial futures compromised. You intended exactly what happened, to take their money and disappear. Marcus's testimony lasted 2 days. By the end, even his own attorney looked disgusted with him. The prosecution's closing argument was powerful. Marcus Webb is not an entrepreneur. He's not an innovator. He's a con artist who targeted vulnerable couples during one of the most important moments of their lives. He exploited their trust. He stole their money. He destroyed their wedding days. And he did it systematically, deliberately, across 5 states for 5 years. The evidence is overwhelming. 42 couples, 5 states, 5 fake identities, $2.4 million stolen. Wedding days devastated. He's not sorry. He's not remorseful. He's angry he got caught. Find him guilty on all counts. Hold him accountable for every couple he defrauded, every dollar he stole, every wedding he destroyed. The defense's closing was weak. Marcus Webb made mistakes, poor business decisions, communication failures. But mistakes are not crimes. Intent matters. Marcus never intended to defraud anyone. He was trying to build a business. Yes, he failed. Yes, couples were hurt, but failure isn't fraud. Incompetence isn't criminality. Find him not guilty. Give him a chance to make restitution, to learn from his mistakes, to rebuild. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. When the jury returned, the courtroom was packed. All 42 victim couples who could attend were there. I sat with Emma and James holding Emma's hand as the verdicts were read. On count 1, wire fraud regarding the Portland victims, how do you find? Guilty. On count 2, wire fraud regarding the Denver victims, how do you find? Guilty. 42 counts of wire fraud, 42 guilty verdicts, 5 counts of identity theft, 5 guilty verdicts, 42 counts of theft by deception, 42 guilty verdicts, computer fraud, guilty. Guilty on all 132 counts. Marcus sat motionless as the verdicts were read. No reaction, no emotion, just cold acceptance that he'd finally been caught. Emma burst into tears beside me. He's guilty. They believed us. He's actually going to prison. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Before sentencing, victims were allowed to give impact statements. Emma's statement: Your Honor, Marcus Webb stole our wedding day and our financial future. We saved for 2 years. Our parents contributed their retirement savings, and Marcus took it all for a venue that didn't exist. On what should have been the happiest day of our lives, we were crying in a parking lot realizing we'd been scammed. We got married thanks to Maya Sinclair finding an emergency venue, but not the way we'd planned. 3 years later, we're still recovering financially, still paying off debt, still living in a small apartment instead of the house we should own. Marcus didn't just steal $30,000, he stole our dreams. Sarah's statement, Denver victim: Marcus Webb cost us 3 years of marriage planning. We postponed our wedding 6 months to save again after he stole our money. We postponed having children because we couldn't afford it. We delayed every major life milestone because of fraud. I'm 32 years old and we just had our first baby. 3 years later than we wanted because Marcus destroyed our financial stability. Mrs. Henderson's statement: I'm 72 years old. I've lived in my family home for 50 years. Marcus Webb used my property, my private estate, to defraud dozens of couples. He violated my home, exploited my absence, made me complicit in his crimes without my knowledge. Those couples planned their weddings at my mansion, and I had no idea. When they arrived to find devastation, it was my property associated with their trauma. Marcus didn't just hurt couples, he hurt me too. Victim after victim spoke. 42 couples, sharing the same story of trust betrayed, money stolen, wedding days destroyed. Marcus's final statement: Marcus was given the opportunity to speak before sentencing. He stood, looking at the judge, and said, I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I made terrible choices. I got caught up in lifestyle I couldn't afford and made decisions that hurt innocent people. I wish I could undo it. I can't, but I'm sorry. It rang hollow, empty. Performative remorse from someone who'd shown no empathy for victims during the entire trial. The judge was unmoved. Mr. Webb, you conducted a sophisticated multi-state fraud operation for 5 years. You targeted vulnerable couples during one of life's most significant moments. You stole 2.4 million stercais. You destroyed 42 weddings. You showed no remorse until caught. Your apology means nothing. The court sentences you as follows: wire fraud, 42 counts. 20 years federal prison per count. Serve concurrently identity theft, 5 counts. 5 years per count, serve consecutively theft by deception, 42 counts. Concurrent with wire fraud sentences. Computer fraud, 3 years, served concurrently, total sentence, 28 years in federal prison, no possibility of parole for first 24 years. Additionally, you were ordered to pay full restitution to all 42 victim couples. Total restitution, $2,416,000. Court is adjourned. 28 years. Marcus Webb was 46 years old. He'd be 74 when eligible for release. The victims erupted in applause. Justice, finally. 3 years after Marcus Webb's sentencing, I received an invitation that made me cry. The Chicago Six invite you to our 3-year anniversary celebration. Join us as we commemorate surviving wedding day chaos and celebrate the friendships forged through shared trauma. Emma, James, Sophie, David, Lisa, Mark, Ashley, Robert, Maria, Tom, Jennifer, and Chris, the 6 couples from November 16, 2024, had become best friends. They called themselves the Chicago Six. They celebrated anniversaries together, vacationed together, supported each other through Marcus's trial and aftermath, And now they were hosting a party to celebrate 3 years of marriage and friendship. I RSVP'd immediately. The party was held at, of all places, Lakefront Pavilion, the emergency venue where Emma and James had gotten married 3 years ago. We wanted to celebrate where it all started, Emma explained when I arrived, the place that saved our wedding day. All 6 couples were there, laughing and toasting with champagne. They looked happy, settled, thriving. Tell me everything, I said. How are you all doing? We took turns sharing updates. Emma and James, we got $8,200 in restitution from Marcus's seized assets, Emma said. Not the full $30,000 we lost, but something. We used it as a down payment on a small condo. We're still recovering financially, but we're stable. And honestly, I wouldn't change our wedding day. It was chaotic and terrifying, but it was also the most real, authentic day of our lives. No pretense. Just love surviving disaster. Sophie and David. We received $7,800 in restitution, Sophie said. We've used it to slowly pay down debt. Marcus stole our dream wedding, but he gave us something unexpected, this friend group. We celebrate holidays together, vacation together. Our kids will grow up as cousins. That friendship is worth more than the mansion wedding we lost. Lisa and Mark. We got $9,100 back, Mark said. We invested it and it's grown. We're planning our 5-year vow renewal, and we're doing it right this time. But at Lakefront Pavilion, the emergency venue from our actual wedding day, because that's where we really got married, not some fancy mansion. Here, with friends who showed up in crisis. Ashley and Robert, our restitution was $8,500, Ashley said. We donated it to a wedding fraud victims fund that was created after Marcus's case. We don't need it. We've recovered financially, but other victims are still struggling. The money can help them. Maria and Tom, we received $7,600, Maria said, and we used it to pay for therapy. Processing wedding day trauma was harder than we expected, but we're good now, really good. And we have 5 other couples who completely understand what we went through. Jennifer and Chris, we got $8,300, Jennifer said. We actually used it to throw a 1-year anniversary party for all 6 couples. Because we figured if we all got scammed together, we should celebrate recovery together. Best decision ever. Chicago 6 became family. Together, the 6 couples had recovered approximately $49,500 of the $180,000 Marcus had stolen from them. Not full restitution, but partial justice. I asked about the broader restitution situation for all 42 victim couples. Marcus was ordered to pay $2.4 million in restitution, Emma explained, but he doesn't have it. The money's gone, spent on luxury lifestyle. The only money available was the $340,000 seized at his arrest. How was that divided? Proportionally among the 42 couples based on their losses, everyone got about 14 cents on the dollar. If you lost $30,000, you got back about $4,200. If you lost $25,000, you got back about $3,500. And the rest? Marcus is supposed to pay from prison wages and any future assets, but prison wages are like $0.23 per hour. He'll never pay off $2 million in restitution. Most victims will never see their full money back. The cruel reality of fraud. Even when the criminal is caught and convicted, victims rarely recover financially. How did the other 36 couples handle it? I asked. Mixed, Sophie said. Some couples divorced. The financial stress and trauma was too much. Some are still paying off debt years later. Some, like us, found support systems and recovered. The wedding fraud victims group we all joined has been life-saving. Marcus Webb is currently serving year 3 of his 28-year sentence at a federal correctional facility in Colorado. According to Detective Rivera, who stayed informed about the case, Marcus has been a difficult prisoner. He refuses to acknowledge wrongdoing, Rivera told me when I asked. He maintains he was running a legitimate business and was unfairly convicted. He's filed multiple appeals, all denied. He shows no remorse. Will he serve the full 28 years? Probably. He's not eligible for parole for 24 years. He'll be 70 years old, and given his complete lack of rehabilitation, he'll likely be denied parole and serve the full sentence. What about the restitution? He's paid approximately $180 or so far from 3 years of prison wages. At his current rate, he'll pay off the $2.4 million restitution in about 13,000 years. So the victims will never see full financial justice. But Marcus Webb will spend most of his remaining life in prison. That's something. Marcus Webb's case sparked significant changes in the wedding industry. Several organizations created new verification systems. The Venue Authentication Database, a centralized database where legitimate venues register with verified property ownership documentation. Wedding planners can check the database to confirm a venue owner actually owns the property they're renting. The Wedding Vendor Protection Act, Illinois, and subsequently 3 other states passed legislation requiring venue owners to register with the state and provide proof of ownership before advertising wedding services. The escrow deposit system. Several wedding planning organizations now recommend couples use escrow services for deposits. Money isn't released to vendors until services are confirmed and verified. The 2 verification rule. Wedding planners are now taught to verify venue ownership through 2 independent sources. 1, county property records showing actual deed. And 2, direct contact with property owner, not just manager. I implemented all of these in my practice. Since Marcus's case 3 years ago, I've personally verified property ownership for every venue I book. It takes extra time. Sometimes annoys venue owners who feel insulted that I'm checking, but I'll never again have clients lose their wedding day to fraud. The 42 victim couples didn't just survive Marcus's fraud, they became advocates. They created Wedding Fraud Awareness, WFA, a nonprofit that educates couples about venue scams and verification methods, provides resources for fraud victims, navigating legal systems, advocates for legislation protecting couples from wedding vendor fraud, offers support groups for victims, processing trauma. Emma serves as WFA's executive director. Marcus took our wedding day. We're using that trauma to protect other couples. If we can prevent even one couple from being scammed, the pain we experience had purpose. Sophie manages WFA's victim support hotline. I get calls from newly scammed couples who just discovered their venue isn't real. They're in shock, devastated. I tell them, you will survive this. You will get married. You will recover. Here's how. The organization has helped expose 3 other venue scammers since Marcus's conviction, saved an estimated 15 couples from losing deposits to fraud, recovered over $150,000 through early intervention and police reports. Marcus created 42 victims. Those victims created an organization that's protected hundreds of others. 9 major cases now. 9 times where planning weddings became investigating crimes. Lauren, saved from being poisoned by groom. David Chen, exposed as bigamist with multiple wives. The Chen family, immigration fraud, sister impersonation. Sarah and Alex, LGBTQ couple forced to perform heterosexuality. Amanda, fake terminal cancer to manipulate fiancé. Tyler, saved from marrying woman faking illness. Jessica, saved from being murdered by groom for insurance money. Claire, saved from being murdered by jealous maid of honor. The Chicago 6, saved from losing weddings to venue scammer. Each case taught me something different. But Marcus Webb's case taught me the most important lesson. Trust is essential in the wedding industry, but verification is survival. Wedding planning is built on trust. Couples trust me. I trust vendors. Vendors trust venues. We assume people are operating honestly because running background checks and demanding proof of everything would make the industry impossible. Marcus Webb weaponized that trust. He knew couples verify just enough to feel comfortable, check website, read reviews, see business license, but not enough to catch sophisticated fraud. He exploited the gap between basic verification and deep investigation. After his case, I had to find a balance, maintaining the trust and relationships that make wedding planning work while implementing verification systems that catch fraud. It's exhausting. It's sometimes insulting to legitimate vendors, but it's necessary because the alternative, more couples losing their wedding days to scammers, is unacceptable. 3 years after the Chicago 6's chaotic wedding day, I still think about one question. Could I have caught Marcus Webb earlier? I noticed red flags, cash deposit requirement, deflection from property owner meetings, thin online presence, minimalist office, but I rationalized each one, investigated and found fake evidence that appeared legitimate, convinced myself I was being paranoid. What if I'd pushed harder, demanded to meet Mrs. Henderson directly? Physically went to the county recorder's office to verify the deed? Would I have caught the scam before Emma and James paid their deposit? Maybe. Maybe not. Marcus had been running this scam for 5 years across 5 states. He'd fooled dozens of wedding planners more experienced than me. He'd created layers of false documentation specifically designed to pass standard verification. But still, I wonder. Emma tells me, Maya, you saved our wedding day. You found us an emergency venue with 1 hour notice. You made our marriage possible. Stop blaming yourself for not catching a professional con artist. She's right, but the guilt lingers. At the 3-year anniversary party, the 6 couples made a toast. Emma raised her glass. 3 years ago today, we were supposed to get married at Henderson Mansion. Instead, we got married in emergency venues with scrambled plans and chaos. It wasn't what we'd paid for. It wasn't what we'd planned. But it was real, and it brought us together. Sophie added, Marcus Webb tried to destroy our wedding days. Instead, he gave us each other, the Chicago 6. We're not just couples who got scammed. We're family. Jennifer finished, to surviving chaos, to emergency weddings, to friendship forged through trauma, to 3 years of marriage and chosen family, to the Chicago 6. Everyone raised glasses to the Chicago 6. I watched these couples who'd started their marriages in the worst possible circumstances, celebrating 3 years of love, friendship, and resilience. Marcus Webb stole their money, their dream venue, their perfect wedding day, but he didn't steal their marriages, didn't steal their happiness, didn't steal their futures. Because love survives fraud, commitment survives chaos, and sometimes the disaster creates something more valuable than the perfection you'd planned. The 6 couples got married on November 16th, 2024, not at Henderson Mansion, not in the way they dreamed, but they got married, they're still married, and they're happy. That's the ending that matters.
Thanks so much for joining us on this journey. If you loved this tale, please subscribe to Tin Tea Tales for more stories like this one. Hit that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and check out our latest uploads on the channel. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you in the next one.